Welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, the podcast that this week is wondering whether we can sue for theft of intellectual property after the news that there's going to be, there was a drive-in concert happening somewhere in Denmark, and that this summer in London, there are going to be drive-in cinemas. My name is... Yes, my name is Tosin, and I am your indignant host in Coventry in the Midlands. And joining me on the Isle of Wight, who I hope is equally indignant because it was originally her idea, is Sharon.
I'm here.
Joining me in Bournemouth is Shaun.
Hi.
So, what do you guys think about this? Like, okay, we talk about this thing like what, two weeks ago. We come up with this idea. Sharon says socially distanced cinema, drive-in cinemas, and then all of a sudden, this thing pops up in Denmark, and they're having a drive-in concert, and superfan Nina, who I interviewed recently and is going to be on the show in a couple of weeks. Superfan Nina sent me a link on Facebook today to say that, look, they're doing it because there was an event saying drive-in cinema in London 2020. And I
think I've read somewhere that there's going to be one in Glasgow, a drive-in cinema up north.
Now,
Bonnie, Scotland.
Yeah. Now I know that we should be happy because hey, all cinema is good cinema, right? Having cinema so far is, but at the same time, yeah, I would just like a little bit of recognition, a little bit of just sort of like, somebody saying, "Well done, here, have 1% of the ticket gates." I mean, come on, is that really, seriously, is that too much to ask for? Is it too much to ask for to have 1% of the ticket gate? But no, apparently not. Anyway, besides being indignant about ideas being stolen by other people who probably just had the same idea, how are you guys doing?
Yeah, good, real good.
You all right?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Good. And Sharon, how are things going with the contact tracing app? You've had another week to play with it.
Yes, I've had it on my phone all week, and I've been out once with it, and I haven't had any pings back, so I'm assuming I haven't been in contact with anyone who's been diagnosed with COVID-19. So yeah, it's very painless. You literally just have your phone with you, which is a bigger thing for me, is to remember to carry my phone with me.
Oh yeah.
But, yeah, I'm not aware of anyone who's had problems with it. Only people who've got older phones have having issues.
Good.
It doesn't work on Huawei phones, and I'm aware that if you've got a pre-2016 phone, you may have issues. So basically, there's the proportion of people who just can't use it or get it because the technology is too new for their phones to support it.
Yep. So Sharon, can you tell us what is actually holding up your phone this week? What are you using as a tripod?
Bear.
Bear. Is it still Charity?
Yeah.
It's still Charity. Right.
I can show you if you like, just to prove You can just see the top of a foot. Look.
I can just about see a top of a foot. Yes, because I know we did that. We did that last week. We put up a video on our WhatsApp page of showing us exactly how lo-fi this podcast is.
Yeah.
We use bears as tripods and all that. So
I tried a different bear, but they're a bit too slidey. My phone kept falling off, so I had to stick with Charity.
Oh, cool. So Charity.
Rupert was just too slippery by far.
So Charity is our new, it's the newest member of our team. Charity is Sharon's tripod to keep the phone steady while we do this Zoom call. Right. Now, we usually, for Netflix or cinema, what we usually do, as the name implies, is we watch a couple of things in the cinema, watch a couple of things in Netflix, and then we rate them and we say, where have we had a better time this week? But ever since cinemas have gone away, we've changed our structure slightly. So to begin with, we're going to talk about what we've been watching, try and see whether we can give a little bit of a review of what we've been watching on TV and Netflix and associated streaming sites. And then in the middle, we're going to have an interview, which is all about cinema. And after that, we'll discuss that and we'll talk about that and maybe even answer one of the questions ourselves. So first up, what have you guys been watching?
Well, I haven't really been watching too much in the way of movies, to be honest.
Okay.
But I have spent terrific amounts of time on YouTube watching favourite clips, and I found like this really good website where like spaghetti western music, and the guy's done lots of, and not just spaghetti western music, Morricone, Japanese stuff. It's just like a rabbit hole, you know. Once you start going down there, and I've been watching some travel vlogs. They call them vlogs when they're on YouTube.
Yeah,
vloggers.
Vlogs.
Vloggers, yeah. So I've been watching a bit of that, and I've been watching old Angela Mayo kung fu clips. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So basically, I've not really watched old spaghetti western clip. And like I said to you, I've been on Facebook and I've been on
the Westerns Forever.
On the Westerns Forever, and I just spend so much time on there. Conversation with people. I spend loads of time. It's like, and I put up this real controversial one. Did I tell you about the Wild Bunch remake?
Yeah, who would you cast in the Wild Bunch?
Yeah. And
who would you cast in the remake of the Wild Bunch?
They were saying, some people saying, how can you say that? Oh, this is just and it's all going on. And I put on about, like, does Anthony Quinn make a good cowboy? And that's like at about 190 odd comments about it. Yeah, of course he does. Blah, blah, blah. Did you see him in this? Did you see him in that? So I've been spending quite a considerable amount of I can invite you, Sharon, if you want to see the page.
You asked me. I've just written it down on my notebook.
Right.
You did ask me to look at one of your posts, and I could not remember for the life of me the name of the page.
Well, there's quite a few. There's quite a few posts on there now. Because,
I have written in my little notebook.
Especially, they don't make them like they used to.
Oh yeah.
I think there's one vote there, so there's obviously a lot. So for me, I mean, it's only recently, since this lockdown thing, I've concentrated more on social media. For me, the groups are brilliant. There's like strange films of the 70s film, and it's just like, wow, I found this bit. And someone said, oh, can anybody recommend a film with Roddy McDowall? And I'm like, wow, there was this 1967 film called It, which is where he got this creature called a golem and all that. And it's like, oh, wow. Do you know what I mean? And so I'm getting all this. And I put up posts and it's like, whoa, I've got to see this one.
So essentially what you say is that Shaun has decided to stop watching things, but instead just go and you've started to just start fights on online forums about old movies.
I was thinking you become a film agony aunt.
Apparently you get badges, yeah. So you get like Rising Star, and so on the Warren Oates one, I'm a storyteller now apparently. So
wow.
And also what's really, really nice is I've actually been going through, you know, like I've had all those old Western film stills.
Yeah.
I've been posting them, so I've been taking photos of them and I've been posting them.
Of all the posters in your childhood bedroom.
And so, and I told you the other week, and I found like the old press books from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah, you said.
So I posted some of them on, and so I'm putting on lots of posts and getting lots of people interested, and it's nice to have, you know, films you're interested in. People to talk about. So, yeah.
Good stuff. And Sharon, what have you been watching?
Not a lot.
But the thing is, you said
Isn't it funny? We got plenty of time, and yet we don't watch stuff.
Well, I think because I was speaking to Superfan Nina and I was speaking to her, and she was saying, "Oh, I don't like the fact that you guys." She finds it very, very, very weird. I think you guys will actually like her interview, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. It's quite funny, and she finds it very weird that we've all just went like, "Yeah, cinema went away and we just stopped watching stuff." She's like, "What? Really?" She was like, "I'm the opposite. I'm watching like loads more stuff." But I know that you were saying that you were watching the first game, the oldest game, the longest game.
Yes, I watched the first game. We watched all of that because we've now got the house, instead of being a crowded house where my two brothers were living here with us, me and my mum. Now it's two of us, and so instead of, you know, one room, the television in one room being occupied by a brother, and then the other room being occupied by someone else, and then I sort of cleared off and would watch a film somewhere. Because it's just me and my mum, I'm obviously keeping her company of an evening. So we've tended to look for things that we can watch together. So if it's got like a U or a PG rating, apart from if it's like Chuck Norris, which is, my mum's a bit of a fan of Chuck Norris, then we'll watch that. But I've tended to look for things that are family friendly that we can watch together. So we watched the first game because it was obviously a drama about, it wasn't just about the early
football,
sort of FA football matches. It was about the social history around it, about how it basically elevated what was a sport for gentlemen and became more of a working man's sport.
Yeah.
And it was an opportunity for working men to actually better themselves and their communities.
Yeah.
So it was more about the social history rather than just people kicking a ball about. So we watched that, the whole of that series, and then we went looking for something else to watch. And we watched a couple of films. We watched The Wish Man on Netflix, and I'm trying to think, there was another one we watched that's gone.
Well, okay, but okay. I'm not even sure of that title. Was it The First Game or something like that? I cannot remember what the title of that show was, about the earliest football.
I think it's called The First Game.
All right. And what would you say if you were going to give that a rating? What would you give it?
I personally would give it a 4.
Oh, really?
Because we both watched it.
The English Game.
6 episodes. The English Game.
It's called The English Game. That's it. Yeah.
That's it. The English Game. Yeah, I would give it a 4 because we both watched it. We watched it over 3 nights. We watched 2 episodes at a time. In the course of a week, we took a night and we said, okay, what should we watch tonight? And then we watched 2 episodes of that. And yeah, we both enjoyed it. We enjoyed the fact that it wasn't just about every week. It wasn't just building up to a big game at the end.
Yeah.
It was about the lives of the players and the social interaction. So yeah, we enjoyed it, and neither of us could be described by any stretch of the imagination as
football fans
or as sports fans of any kind. My dad was a sports fan. Anything sporting he would watch. So a Saturday, I was never allowed to enter the room because it was like match of the day or sports day or grandstand or whatever was on, the world of sport. That was from when it started till when it ended. We weren't allowed in the room. He had his lunch in the room. We didn't disturb him. So I've always regarded sport as being a little bit distant, and it's something that it's not for the likes of me. But we both enjoyed this English Game drama. We did very much.
Okay, something you've just said reminded me of something we were speaking about a couple of weeks ago, and this is movie titles. So a couple of weeks ago, you said that you watched a film called Time Trap. And I said that sounds like a made-for-TV Saturday afternoon Channel 5 movie. And based on the title, I wouldn't watch it. And linking to what Shaun was talking about, and talking about like old films and all that. And I actually think that titles of films is something that has gotten worse as time has gone along, because in this last week there was a film on obviously there's the Paramount Network, and I was just sort of going through, and there was when you're going through your TV guide, your digital TV guide, and I just sort of saw a title and I was like, ooh, and the title immediately, I saw this title and it was 7 Men from Now, and I was just kind of like, now that's a title. That's a title that makes you start thinking, makes you go, what about 7 Men from Now? What's going to happen? And this it was made in the 50s. I think it was a 59 movie with an actor called
Sorry? Did you say Lee Marvin was in it as well?
Lee Marvin was in it. It was a Western. Lee Marvin was in it. And based on the title alone of this film, I was like, I'm watching this. And I watched it. The film, it was a bit sort of like middle of the road. Lee Marvin is on scenery chewing form. I guess that it's probably, I don't know exactly what point in his career it came in, because I don't know that much about Lee Marvin's career, so to say. But it's, I was just kind of like, it just seems like it was like a run-of-the-mill Western. But at the same time, I was like,
did you say Randolph Scott was the lead?
Randolph Scott was the lead, yes.
Yeah, and I think his early career, Lee Marvin did a lot of like Rent-A-Goon stuff. He was one of the background baddies, as the sort of stock characters. That's what he was drafted into do. It was only when he sort of went grey and became a bit more grizzled that he actually started coming into his own in the 60s.
Yeah, I think this was
around films for a lot longer.
Yeah, I think this was...
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. What?
He was the man, wasn't he? He was the man who shot. He was the man who shot Liberty.
Oh, Valance. Okay, cool. All right, cool. Because you was the man who shot. I was like, shot who? JFK?
They are. No.
I was like, no, but I didn't really know. But yeah, it just got me thinking, because you said something like, The Wish Man or something like that just now, and I thought, oh, that's another bad title, and it just made me thinking.
Yeah, you know exactly what it's about. It's like, okay, you got wishes by any chance? It's like, yeah. So.
But 7 Men from Now, I was like, kick-ass title. And Shaun, you're not echoing anymore, so I think we're good where you are. So you don't feel you need to keep quiet.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, that's all right then. That's all right because we did have a bit of a delay, didn't we?
Yeah, we had a bit of a delay, but it looks like we sorted that out now. So yeah, Sean, don't feel like you need to keep quiet.
Okay, I won't. Okay, yeah, back to Lee Marvin then. He's like one of my top boys. He is. He goes up there. He's really high. I mean, I loved him in a film called Point Blank.
Oh yeah. That is the Lee Marvin movie.
That is, yeah, and another one called Prime Cut, which we starred in with Gene Hackman, and I mean, those two films were sort of and then you think of the other stuff he's in. That's when I noticed him more from some of his back catalogue. I thought, oh yeah, he's that.
He's that guy.
He's that guy. Bad Day at Black Rock, which is a terrific movie. I'm sure Sharon's seen that, haven't you?
Yeah. A lot of those early westerns I've seen. Yeah.
But have you seen Bad Day at Black Rock with Spencer Tracy?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Yeah. It's cool. Yeah, it's a good one. Lee Marvin, nice. He's good, and he's been in a few good westerns as well. So he pops up quite a lot on one of these pages, one of these groups. He's always popping it.
Oh, you know what, Sean, I might come join your Westerns Forever group, and I might just come and throw like a bomb and then leave. And that bomb,
that'd be cool. That's what you should do, man.
And the bomb I would throw would be like, I think Lee Marvin's, my first ever experience of Lee Marvin is my favorite ever, and I think he was never better than my first experience of Lee Marvin, and that was Paint Your Wagon. So.
I love Paint Your Wagon.
Okay, so
I talk to the trees, but they don't listen.
Okay, so
that was Clint Eastwood, wasn't it? He did Wandering Star.
Yeah, he sang that one.
Okay, so if you're listening to this and you do not know what Paint Your Wagon is, and we're talking about Lee Marvin and all that, so this is like Lee Marvin was a hard man actor. People knew him as a hard man actor, and this is a film that stars. It's a western that stars Clint Eastwood and Lee Marvin, and they even have an episode of The Simpsons that makes a joke about it. The way they go to the video store, because this was when The Simpsons has been on for so long that it's gone through VHS, through to DVD, through to streaming. It's just straddled all of them. So you can find they go to the video store, and Homer's trying to pick a film to watch, and he's like, Paint Your Wagon, Lee Marvin, Clint Eastwood. And he's like, Lee Marvin, he's always annoyed at something. There's bound to be somebody getting shot in this film. And he takes it home, and it turns out that Paint Your Wagon is a musical. It's a Western musical. So it's like seeing a hard man actor. Like, imagine if you had a film where you had Jason Statham, and you took it home and you're expecting to see somebody getting punched and lots of people getting shot. And instead, they start going, Paint Your Wagon, da, 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 da. And
hand me down those canopies, I'm throwing them away. Yeah, and
I think a lot of sort of Western fans and Lee Marvin fans think it's absolutely sacrilege to bring up Paint Your Wagon. So I think I'll come on to Westerns Forever, say Lee Marvin's best performance ever was Paint Your Wagon, and then just leave.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Leave and see the apocalypse sort of descend upon the group.
Well, for some people, that probably is the only film they know him from.
It was the first one I knew him from, but it wasn't. But I didn't realize it was him. It wasn't until later when I found out that Lee Marvin was a thing, and then I went back and I was like, oh, he was the guy in Paint Your Wagon, and
he was the guy in like Dirty Dozen. Yeah, he was the Dirty Dozen guy. Well, yeah,
he was versatile. So, okay. So we're talking about reviews of things that we've been watching. So last week we had Yatish on the show. So Yatish, who came on, we had a fun game trying to figure out what he looks like. I will tell you, Sean, I'll tell you what Yatish says about what the both of you said about what his thoughts were about what he thinks about what the both of you said that he looks like. but
Bluetooth mode.
Quiet speaker. But he has continued the education of his children in all things pop culture this week, and he sent me a still of a film that they were watching, which was Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So he showed it to them this week, and I asked him to send me a recording of the verdict. So we have the youngest ever reviewers that we have ever had on this show, telling us now what they think about what I don't think it's too far to say is a modern classic, which is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So you're gonna hear Tane, I believe Tane is 9 and I think Ira is 6. I should have got that right. They're the same ages as my actual blood niece and nephew. But anyway, Tane, Ira, if I got your ages wrong, Uncle Tosin is sorry. But this is what you, first of all, we'll hear Tane, then we'll hear Ira. And this is their verdict on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
I liked the film because it was really funny when the guy got sent to help them with their homework, and the wise people were like, "Hey, dude," and then I want to go to the future.
I like the film because when they went in the shop, they were just going in random places, and it was really funny.
And so that is their review of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Apparently they laughed all the way through. And
a good review that was too. Well done, you guys. Well done.
Really funny. That's good enough for us.
Well done, Tane. Well done, Ira. You have impressed Uncle Shaun and Auntie Sharon. All right. Okay. So with what Yatish thought you guys thought about the way he looked, he thought it was quite funny because I sent it through to him, and he was and he just sent me back. Okay, first of all, he says, by the way, can you tell your friend Sean, Scorpion is good? So you were talking about your favorite ever Star Trek episode was the Voyager one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 2-part Scorpion.
Oh, good.
He says Scorpion is good. In terms of dabbling with the dark side, Deep Space Nine in the Pale of the Moonlight is pretty awesome. So apparently there's an episode called In the Pale of the Moonlight in Deep Space Nine. His recommendation to you. And then after that, he just says, dude, 50 cents? which was Sharon's call for what she reckoned he looked like, what she reckoned Yatish looked like. And then he says, he follows this up by saying,
oh dear.
He follows up by saying, tall, muscly with thinning hair. Your other pal reckons I look like Vin Diesel. So he says that he's gonna have to post a photo of himself in a suit or something now to really blow your minds. So Yatish, we're waiting for Yatish, we're waiting for that. We're waiting for a picture of you to show us what it is that you look like. But
Did he have an idea of us? Oh, I suppose. Does he have an idea of us?
I don't know. He hasn't said anything. I don't think he's gone onto the web. I don't think he's gone onto the Facebook page, so he shouldn't know what you guys look like. I'll ask him and see what he reckons you guys look like. I'll see what he reckons you guys look like. All right. Now, with that,
you don't actually know what he looks like, though. Is he? Is he fair? Is he dark? Is he tall, short?
I will send you a picture.
Oh, okay.
I will send you guys a picture of what Yatish looks like now, because I have a picture when we're younger. All right. Cool. So just quickly to finish off this section of the show, I'm just going to say other things that I've been watching. I finally got around to watching Phantom Thread.
Okay. Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, finally got around to watching Phantom Thread, which is like, the supposedly Daniel Day-Lewis's final thing that we're ever going to see him in on screen. Because I know there was a whole hoopla about it. I saw it, and I know that when it came on, I think one of you reviewed it on one of the shows that we're on about.
That would have been me. Yeah.
And when I said Phantom Thread, you both kind of went ooh. So just a quick thing about what I thought about it. I thought I quite liked it. It's a bit kind of like, it's a slow film. It's one of those slow measured films where it's not about much happening, and it really isn't about much happening. There isn't any great crisis of, oh my God, we've got to do this. We've got to get the dress ready for the Queen. Nothing like that, because I don't think that's not what Paul Thomas Anderson's about, and it's not what Daniel Day-Lewis is about whatsoever. But one of the things I loved about the film is how it takes you a while to figure out what period this film is set in. Because the film starts off and they don't try and signpost it. They don't try and say London 1962 or anything like that. It just carries on, and you just watch, and it could be a contemporary story. And then there was one bit where they have an interview and someone is videoing this interview for the news or something. And all of a sudden I was like, what's that camera doing there? This must be like the 50s or something. But so it's like it must be the 50s or the 60s. That camera says, but up until that point, it didn't make a big deal about the fact that it was a period movie. And I thought, obviously, the performances were good. Daniel Day-Lewis, Leslie Manville, Vicky Krieps. It's pretty much a three-hander between the three of them, and I think I read somewhere that it's like Daniel Day-Lewis was an obsessive actor who plays obsession really, really well. Like he plays, and the whole idea is that this character is obsessed with whatever it is that he's doing, and he's ordered his whole life. Everybody who's around him has to be about him creating his art, even to the point of like, even when he's having breakfast, it's like, you're scraping your toast too loud. and it's essentially the story becomes something about what happens when somebody who is if you've ever seen The Big Bang Theory, he's a bit like Sheldon in that everything around him is designed for him to have for his benefit. What happens when somebody comes in and refuses to sort of like toe the line, but he kind of feels attracted to this person, feels like he needs this person, and it becomes this tale of almost like two obsessive people finding each other and how they come up with this. So it's really interesting. I'll give it a 4 out of 5 because it's a kind of film that I think some people would be like, "Oh my god, it's amazing." Some people would be like, "What the heck was going on?"
I think I probably gave it a 4 actually myself, if I remember.
Yeah, but I can't remember. It was quite a while back, but it was one of those films that you have down, and now you have a lockdown. I actually started making my way through my Netflix list. And I was like, oh yeah, Phantom Thread. I've got that on my Netflix list for ages. I should watch that. I really, really should watch that and go around to it. And other things. Oh, and last week, Shaun, when you were talking about your mum and you were talking about who your mum fancied when she was when she was younger, whether it was a Cary Grant or a Gary Cooper, and you said Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson was the first name you said, and I had to bite my tongue so hard because by that time we were already rambling way off topic. Before I said something that would set us off on another half-hour rabbit trail, I was like, no, because I've been watching a TV show on Netflix called Hollywood.
Oh, I've seen the thumbnail for that, but I haven't looked at it any further.
Yeah, it's called Hollywood. It's by Ryan Murphy, the guy who made Glee and the guy who made The Politician,
American Horror Story,
all that. He's pretty much like a giant when it comes to American Crime Story as well. He's pretty much giant when it comes to American TV, and he's done this show called Hollywood. And Rock Hudson plays a massive part in it. Rock Hudson is actually a massive character in this show, and it's kind of like it starts off in that it's like the post-war period in Hollywood, and all these people come to Hollywood and they're trying to make it, and there's there's a black actress who's trying to go forward because she can't do anything, and there's like a gay black guy who's written a film that everybody loves until they find out that he's a black guy who wrote it, and there's a half Filipino director who's trying to sort of like that, who's trying to make his way in, and it's all about all these people getting together at this time in Hollywood in the 50s and trying to move things forward. So some of the period detail is amazing. Because it's Ryan Murphy, he has this sort of like almost storybook color palettes and every. But when you said Rock Hudson, I was like, oh my god, because it's all about Rock Hudson arriving and his name being changed from what was it, Roy Fitzgerald to Rock Hudson. It has again how these things all link up. We're talking about Big Bang Theory. The guy Jim Parsons who plays Sheldon plays a guy called Harry Wilson who was Rock Hudson's agent. And was a real big. He was essentially the Harvey Weinstein of his day in pretty much every sense.
Wow.
In pretty much every sense. If you go into his Wikipedia page, it says Harry Wilson was almost single-handedly responsible for starting off the beefcake craze of the 1950s, where you had all these people who are going like, oh yeah. So I haven't finished watching it. I've started watching Hollywood, but I think Shaun, you might be interested in it.
It sounds intriguing. Actually, I could do with watching that. I think.
Yeah, because being Ryan Murphy, I think Ryan Murphy's gay. I'm not sure, but he has this whole thing where
he is.
Yeah, because just looking at the shows he's made and the sort of themes he seems to keep coming back to, I'll be really surprised if he wasn't. And it's and he with this, it's kind of like it's like a fantasy wanting to say this was a period in Hollywood that this kind of stuff happened. People had to hide the fact that they were gay. People had to sort of like if you were anything other than a white male, like in the first episode there's an actress called Anna May Wong. And what happens to her is actually heartbreaking. Like the way they put it, I don't know whether she was a real person, but what happens to her is really, really heartbreaking. And she's a Southeast Asian actress, and so it's kind of like a fantasy saying, this is what I wish would have happened at this time. these are the people who I wish would have had an opportunity at this time. So you can see even from episode 3 that this is a fantasy, but it's quite an evolving one, a bit like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Ah, cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Hollywood, I'm enjoying it so far. I would recommend that.
Yeah, Ryan Murphy did a thing when at the end of the run of Glee called the Glee Project, which was like a reality TV thing where you had all these young people came and they auditioned, and then they auditioned for all the producers and all the people involved in Glee, the choreographers and the people who write the songs, and obviously then they chose who ultimately would get a part in Glee, and throughout that they would explore different aspects of Hollywood, and part of it was sort of sexuality, where one of the themed weeks was their like sexuality week.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really engrossing.
I don't really like reality television apart from Strictly Come Dancing, but yeah, that was quite interesting actually to see how the machine works. Yeah.
Well, speaking about reality TV that we don't, I've started getting sucked into a program called Botched on the E Entertainment Network. Now, the E Entertainment Network is a channel that I think nothing good can come out of. I'm sorry if that is massively biased and massively prejudiced, but I just really think nothing good can come out of the E Entertainment Network. But does that have like Extreme A&E on? Is that the same thing that has Extreme A&E that my daughter was on? She was? St. Mary's. Oh yeah, she was on that. She was on Extreme A&E. She had a stomach stud thing that had gone bad, like in her belly. Oh, like it got infected or something. Oh yeah. Oh man, I watched it. I tell you, whoa, it was. I mean, you see, I'm not gonna say nothing. But talking about mouth, I was like, whoa, yeah. So, but it looked pretty painful because she's a bit wussy. So, okay, so it's Ellie, right? Ellie, yeah, Ellie's on that program, Extreme A&E. It's Extreme. Okay, so you've just broadcasted out to the whole world that your daughter was on an episode of Extreme. No. Oh well, I don't expect you can find it anyway. I don't expect. Well, the internet will find it, Sean. The internet will find it. But the thing I've always wondered about that is when people show up, they have to sign a release to say I'm okay to be in this. I'm okay for you to use my image in this thing. Did she get paid for it? I don't know. Actually, to be honest. Oh no! Because I'm really interested to find out about that when they do shows like this. Because this show, Botched, it's all about people who have gone and had plastic surgery and it's gone wrong. And they go see these two doctors in LA who fix whatever it is that has been done with them. So it's like they fix the job that's been botched. And when I was like, oh for goodness, this is one of those stupid reality TV things where it's like, it's all about gawking at people and like the more horrific the person, the better. But the guys are actually like proper doctors and they actually have some sort of ethics. And I found myself getting drawn into the whole process of how they go about choosing who they're going to operate on and who they're not. So now I'm looking at it going, I still firmly believe in my soul that nothing good can come out of the E network. Nothing good come. But this show, if I start watching an episode, I will stay to then I'll be like, oh wow, oh that was actually quite good. And then they'll say, next week on Botch, we have a woman who has a big bum and wants it to be even bigger. And I'll be like, oh for goodness sake, this is rubbish. Nothing good can come out of the entire network. But I still feel like if I watched that episode, I would watch it all the way to the end. So well done, the makers of Botched. You have managed to make a show that I watch in spite of myself. All right, cool. Shall we get on to the cinema section of the show where we talk? Yeah. Yes. So this week we had an interview. So what we do in this section of that is that we have an interview with somebody and we ask them 4 questions. Tell us the story of the first film you ever saw at cinema, the last film you caught at cinemas before the lockdown. What is it that you love about going to the cinema, and what are you most looking forward to when cinemas reopen? And what I love about this series, I'm actually really, really loving interviewing people, is like just finding all these sort of cinephiles who come out of the woodwork. Like I think Sandi, it was because I put up a link to one of our previous podcasts. I think it was 2 episodes ago. I think it was the episode we had Holly on. And Sandi sort of said, "Oh, do I need Spotify to listen to this? Because the link I share on Facebook is Spotify because I figure most people might have Spotify." And I was like, "No, you can find it on any other podcast place." And I was like, "Oh, you want to come on the show?" And she was like, "Oh, what do I have to talk about? I'm not sure I have anything to say." Almost everybody that we speak to says, "I'm not sure I have anything to say." And then I interview them, and then 40 minutes later, it's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I haven't told you about this yet." So what we're going to hear now is Sandi, and we're going to hear Sandi telling us a little bit about these questions, and this is what Sandi had to say.
Tosin.
Hello, Sandi. How are we?
Hello. Good, thank you. How are you?
I am doing very well. Welcome to the Netflix versus cinema podcast interview.
Quite a mouthful.
It is. I get it wrong every week. I'm like, welcome to the podcast versus the Netflix versus no, it's something Netflix versus cinema podcast, because cinema hasn't been around for a while. I've begun to forget what it looks like. So you should
do one of those, like, say this, Peter Piper picked a pecker, that one.
Oh yeah, that one that nobody ever gets from. Peter Piper picked a pickled pepper. You say I can do that. Exactly. That's easy. Say Netflix versus cinema podcast interview. It's kind of hard. I don't get why it doesn't make any sense, but it is. There you go. How are you?
You never got lines wrong. You never used to get lines wrong.
Oh no!
You always knew your lines.
I just flubbed it. I just made it look as if I knew what I was doing.
You just embodied the character.
Yeah, just going. People are like, is that the line? I think it is. He seems confident. Oh yeah.
Exactly.
All right, now I know that you're a busy woman, and so I don't want to take too much of your time. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us and coming on to talk cinema with us, even though there is no cinema. As we said on the show, what we've decided to do is we've decided that, well, Netflix is cinema. Netflix has pretty much won the rest of 2020. and Netflix has won 2020, or Netflix and Friends, Netflix and other viewing platforms have won 2020. So we decided we'll come down and we'll gather around cinema like a fallen fighter on a battlefield, and we'll just sort of talk about what we love about it and everything. And in preparation for this, you sent me quite a long message to explain your background that, if it's okay with you, I'm going to summarize as I love film.
Great. Perfect.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about it? Tell us a little bit about you and your background with film and your love affair with it and all that.
Okay, briefly. I've always loved stories, grew up reading books and all the rest of it. And I'll answer your other questions later, which will explain some of that as well. But I then studied for an MA in film at Westminster and taught A-level film for several years here in the UK, in London, in Greenford. Which I thought was green until I arrived in it, but that's a problem with reading Harry Potter and then expecting British schools to all look a particular way.
So I just want to tell anyone who's listening where you hail from.
I hail from South Africa.
Okay, all right.
20 years ago. Can you believe it?
It's crazy when it sneaks up on you like that, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So I taught film for several years, loved teaching film. The A-level class, it's like teaching literature, but on screen.
Yep.
Loved that. And then when I left teaching, I did bits and bobs here and there, a little bit of extra work, a little bit of acting, a little bit of work in production. And I guess what I discovered is I love talking about and analyzing and discussing and communing with film lovers more than I necessarily like the actual being on set and physical process of the paperwork involved in any media. Yeah,
it's boring, isn't it? Being on set is actually quite boring.
Yeah, sometimes like 15 hours of just standing around.
Of nothing, yeah. It's funny. It's funny how when I tell people that one of the most boring sets I was on was a Star Wars set. People are like, "What? For a Star Wars?" Exactly. Like, yeah, it was mega boring.
Exactly. So, and then I started writing film and theatre reviews for 2 South African expat newspapers. Which I loved. I got free tickets to things. So every time there was a South African director, writer, actor, whatever, I got to go and see it and write about it and interview and authors as well. So that was amazing. And then those 2 papers have become online papers now, and most of them have resettled back in South Africa. So they have a very small base here. And then, and like I say, one thing I really missed was the actual discussion around film and media. And I had two colleagues, one in the photography department and one in the film department with me, that every morning I used to have a cup of coffee with them, and we'd chat about what we'd watched and what we liked and what we thought. And I really missed that. So I invited the two of them and a few other people, and we started a film club, which we called Aliens and Others.
Ooh.
And I really love that. And
anything behind that name?
Well, Aliens, I did my film master's degree final thesis on, because I did the cinematography of suspense.
Oh, James Cameron's Aliens.
Exactly. So
Okay.
Aliens and Jaws, I did my dissertation on.
Ooh.
And we thought, well, you could be an alien or you could be something other than an alien, and the film The Others with Nicole Kidman caught our fancy. So that was the title. We used to meet about sort of ad hoc basis about 4 or 5 times a year, but we haven't met for a while, and I guess I'd really like to start that up after COVID.
Yeah.
And that's me. Now I'm obviously, we've got a home cinema, a projector and a screen, basically.
Okay.
And we don't have a TV, but we stream. So that's where we are.
Oh,
right now.
okay. You see, now in the message when you sent something to me, you said that you guys didn't have a TV. I was like, how does that work with your? Let's be honest, the borderline addiction to film. So and I was like, how does that work if you don't have a TV? But now you said, we got rid of the TV, instead we got a home cinema. Okay, I get you now.
We didn't want to channel hop in an addictive, seamless, mindless way, and we don't like advertising either. At all. So that was the idea. So we have a projector and a wall.
But if you can okay, here's my question. If you can stream something, because now obviously TV is all online, so if you can stream something, doesn't that mean that you still have to have quite a bit of discipline to not just jump onto some live stream of something on TV?
Well, I don't think either of us much likes a lot of some of the stuff that's churning out of TV.
Okay.
Anyway, but I think when you've got a whole lot of platforms, like you turn on Apple TV and you've got Netflix or BBC iPlayer or Showmax or 5 Live or ITV or whatever, you actually start making choices instead of just turning on a screen and flipping through it with a control. So, but sometimes we do get lost in the sort of circuit of going around the Netflix stuff, trying to choose one, because we don't both like necessarily all the same genre and stuff like that. So
yeah, I know what you mean. There have been times when I've actually sort of tried to sit down with Netflix, Amazon Prime, Now TV, whatever it is, and tried to choose something, and I've actually gone back to the safety and security of somebody telling me what to watch by just putting on BBC One. I'm like, I don't have to make a decision.
Exactly. The decision making is the hard part.
Oh, all right, cool. And also in that, you mentioned something about, I think you said something about you briefly attended your film club. I think by that you mean my film club. I don't remember having a film club.
Well, you started up something where we decided we'd look at stuff that was out there that maybe we wouldn't want to really choose ourselves, but so that we could watch, discuss, and then be relevant, so to be able to talk to others who are watching it.
Okay.
And the choice that you made was The Exorcism of Emily Rose. We watched it in Stratford somewhere, I think at Andrew and Berna's house.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just traumatized after that. So, but horror is not my thing, unless it's creature feature.
Okay, you see, now this is the weird thing, right? Okay, you said you were traumatized. I might have been so traumatized, I do not remember this at all.
Exactly, you blocked it out completely.
I do not remember setting this up. I do not remember watching this at the house. I barely remember the film. I think it had Jennifer Carpenter in it, but I barely remember the film. So when I read that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. But, well, okay, well, I'm gonna have to figure out where that memory is gone. But shall we get onto our questions?
Yes.
So the questions that we're asking everybody is, the first film you saw at cinema ever. Tell us the story of the first time you ever went to a cinema. The last film that you caught before the lockdown happened. why it is that you love going to the cinema, and what are you most looking forward to seeing when cinemas reopen. Now, you've already kind of started off on essentially, why do you think cinema is a thing? Why do you love going to the cinema? So please carry on and just elaborate a little bit more on that.
Okay, so for me, cinema is an outing, whereas Netflix is an at-home activity, even though they're essentially you're watching a film and that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Cinema popcorn for me is the best. I can never get the salt exactly right, and I burn popcorn sometimes. And so for me, that's a big treat. I know for other people that's a real irritation, somebody crunching in your ear. But for me, cinema and popcorn are synonymous, and cinema popcorn is better than anything else I've ever tasted.
Take that, Butterkist.
Exactly. Previews, just there's something about a sort of, I guess it's like opening a sort of chocolate box of different varieties, and you get to sort of see what's coming and anticipate it and so on.
Yep.
And the shared experience, laughing together, screaming together, perhaps, whether it's with the person that you're there with, or whether it's just that you're there with a group of people who are having screaming because they all got a fright or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I remember in a book I read, it wasn't an autobiography, it was a biography about Spielberg and Lucas, really gripping stuff. And Spielberg talked about how he sat at the back of the cinema for a preview screening of Jaws. Him and the editor, who they called Mother Cutter, who's, I forget what her real name is, but she was an elderly woman who has since died, but a very good editor.
It's not Thelma Schoonmaker, is it?
It could be.
I know she was. I
don't remember.
I know she's Martin Scorsese's person, but I don't know. I know that she worked with Spielberg. But anyway, carry on.
I'd have to look it up. Anyway, and they watched, and I don't want to give anything away, but there's a scene under the water, as there would be in Jaws, and where something floats up in front of the diver's goggles.
Yeah.
And the cinema, he expected there to be a big scream, and there wasn't so much. And afterwards they had a chat, and she said, I know how to get a good scream out of them. And they did a bit of tweaking. And anyway, I love the whole idea of a shared experience and looking at our reactions and stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously you can get that in a home cinema, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard to get that total blackness, that total darkness, and the cinema seat and the whole experience at home.
Yeah.
And then some films I think are really better suited for the big screen and the big music and the big sound and the big everything. Like, well, I'll go back to Aliens and Jaws, but Jurassic Park and probably every superhero film and action film we've ever seen, just about.
Yeah, true. Well, all the good ones.
Yeah, exactly. You need to get pulled into some of those experiences, and quite frankly, I've often caught up on my cinema viewing or my film viewing in an airplane, and the small screen, it just doesn't work for some things. So, I think there's a whole experience there. There's a whole focus as well. Focus in the cinema, you've got you give 100% focus. You might slightly focus on your popcorn as well, but at home, I might check my phone when a text message comes through. I might pause it to make a drink. I might get a call from a family member, and it's just not quite the same, I think. So that's why cinema. Those are my reasons.
Oh well, yeah, I agree with you. And also, just to give her due, it was Verna Fields. Verna Fields was. Verna Fields.
Verna Fields, that's the one.
Yeah, the editor of Jaws, Verna Fields.
Mother Cutter, yeah.
So yeah, that's what. Well, I think enough said. You said it. I would agree with a lot of that stuff. Anyone listens to this podcast would have heard me say some things along those lines. But I love the fact that you point out that there's a different bit of the cinema. There's the storytelling, which you can get on a small TV screen play, but you don't get the experience.
Yeah.
Seems to be what I was picking out of what you were saying.
Absolutely.
There's different areas to what makes a film. There's a story, and you might get the story, but you don't get the experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I could I can agree with you. I mean, I know even though nowadays a lot of the films I see them on my own, because obviously we have to watch films for this podcast, and if I waited for other people to watch films, I just wouldn't watch many films. So
yeah.
So I watch a lot of films on my own, but every now and then you manage to get into a cinema that's packed, and it's a totally different thing. I remember I saw Blue Story last year in a cinema in Coventry, surrounded by essentially a whole bunch of black teenagers who who for what they were seeing on the screen was similar to what they would have known growing up. And that was one of my most fun experiences I've had in a cinema, because everything, the jokes, and also the fact that because they're black, so they have African blood in them, and there is the whole thing where in Nigeria, where I come from, watching something is an interactive experience. So you don't just sit down there and go,
exactly.
Oh, yeah, no, it's an interactive. It's like, oh no, waste, man, waste, and all that stuff that was going on throughout the film. And I was like, this is kind of fun. And I think you don't get that sitting at home with just 2 or 3 people. So it's I totally get you on that. Oh, but okay, you're talking about going to the cinemas. Do you have a favorite one? Do you have a great one that you're like that? Let's say.
Are you still there?
I'm still here. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So I like cinemas that are. I quite like independent cinemas, especially quirky ones. Maybe something like a really small room, or some of these more luxury ones where you can maybe order a drink, that kind of thing. Obviously, that's on the sort of high end, and those are more expensive.
Yeah.
The cinema that we used to go to when I was at university had several broken chairs, so if you went as a group, you couldn't always sit next to people, which I think might be quite good for social distancing, actually. And then that had a gallery as well, so people could, throw things from the top, which you did. Student behavior was always a little bit dodgy.
Yeah.
But my favorite, I suppose, is wherever I can go that's easy. I'm not a late night person. I don't like to go very far out of my way. I enjoy my local cinema. So Putney Odeon is my closest, or Fulham View, or Fulham Cineworld, I think it is. And so if I can get to something that I like at the right sort of time, close by, then that's my favorite. But yeah, ideally independent cinema is independently owned cinema is quite appealing.
Well, good stuff. Right.
You also end up getting some things that aren't necessarily, because it can be a thing where if there's a couple of really big films and they're released all in all the main cinemas, and you're looking on a Friday night where to go, and you can't find anywhere that's showing anything other than maybe children's films and half term. So it's quite nice to go to independent. So that's.
Sorry, I'm laughing because you sound a little bit like Sharon, who's one of the co-hosts of the podcasts. Yeah, she can't stand animation, but so
I don't have a problem with animation, but I just want to have some choice. Or maybe it's like October and it's horror season.
Oh,
and
yeah,
you can't see anything decent apart from something that's going to haunt you for your life.
But so you can you can get something that's a little bit more get to a cinema that's a bit more tailored, a bit more curated.
A little bit nuanced, yeah. Definitely.
All right. Okay, so going on from that, tell us the story of the first time you ever went to the cinema. What was the first film you saw? What kicked off this love obsession for you?
Well, actually, I think what kicked off the love, I think the film thing really goes back to the fact that I love stories and books and so on. My parents used to allow us to go to the local video store, and my father would choose a National Geographic film about animals, and we got to choose a film that we wanted to watch. And so that was quite a big thing in our lives back in the day of video stores. And my parents were a little bit, they weren't so keen for us to go to the cinema, because in the town that I lived in, the cinema was, I guess you could say, downtown. It was in the main CBD of the town.
So and, that CBD was Central Business District, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, after dark, it wasn't necessarily a very safe place, and they didn't want us children hanging around there. They wanted to know who was picking us up, who was dropping us off, etc. So actually, the first film I ever went to see, I only remember that it was about a plane, and I actually had to look it up, but it was Delta Force in 1986. with Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris and his amazing bike.
And to be honest, I actually have no idea. I do not know the storyline. The film itself didn't impact me, but I know because it was my first chance where we'd been begging our parents to allow us. This is my brother and me.
Yeah.
To allow us to go to the cinema. I think it wasn't about the film in this case. It was about the cinema. And I think we had a couple of friends with us, and, you know, there was some approval with parents about who was being picked up and who was picking us up, etc. And it was safe. And so we went to see that. But the one I do actually remember and impacted me was Crocodile Dundee, same year, 1986.
Oh, yeah?
With Paul Hogan and Linda Kozlowski.
Yeah.
And that one really impacted my brother and me. And on the drive home with my parents, we were leaning out the window and shouting hello to strangers, because that's what Paul Hogan does when he arrives in New York and thinks that everybody's chatty like in Australia. And so, yeah, that I think sold it for me, or bought it for me, whatever. That and with my brother, yeah. So that was a great experience. And then shortly after that, the other significant one I remember was going on a date to see Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Ooh.
So
good taste. Yeah. Good taste, that guy.
Yeah, apart from my blip with Chuck Norris.
Well. Now you see Delta Force. Now that was a film that growing up, that was because we didn't have cinemas in Nigeria. But that was our go-to. Yeah, now this is the height of cinema. If you want to know what a film is, Delta Force. And there were some channels in Nigeria that I think had this old tape of Delta Force that they found somewhere, and they just put that in every now and then. It would come up on TV, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, Delta Force, Chuck Norris!"
Must be a boy thing.
Well, I have to admit that is one time when we do just totally fulfill the stereotype. Yeah, it was like, oh, stuff blows up. He has a magic motorbike. Yes. So yeah, but yeah, you went on a date to see Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I was saying that guy, good taste. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what else he was like, but I can't fault his taste for first date film. All right.
I can't even remember who chose it, but it was a small town, so maybe there was only one screen. It might have just been the only offering. But I do love Indiana Jones, so it's good.
Or it might have been the time when you went. Let's go to the pictures. Let's go see the picture, because there was one every week.
Yeah, could well have been.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord. Oh, okay, but we're about to get into a different discussion. That was for another podcast we used to do called They Don't Make Them Like They Used To. But anyway, we'll carry on with this one. And so what was the last film that you managed to catch before the lockdown hits?
So I was actually really excited about the films that were coming up just before lockdown. And I don't know if it was late January or early February, but I took an elderly friend of mine to go and see Little Women.
Oh, yeah.
And the very next week to go and see The Personal History of David Copperfield, because we both love classics.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so 2 Fridays in a row, I went to see those two. And the plan was the third one to go and see 1917, but that didn't work out. But yeah, so those were the last two I saw. Little Women with Saoirse Ronan and Laura Dern, and The Personal History of David Copperfield with Dev Patel, etc.
Yeah.
So, and loved them, really loved them. You know, they were two quite interesting films because neither of them exactly adhered to the book.
Yes, true.
In each case.
Yeah.
So they were quite interpretive, which normally I would really be a stickler for. You know, it's got to be the book was good enough. You know, you don't need to improve
this is what Dickens wrote.
But I really thought there were some really interesting things there, particularly in both films with characters and the actors that played them. So I thought they were good interpretations.
Yeah. No, we like those two films on the podcast as well. I mean, because Sharon is a bit like, essentially we have some rules that if something is animated or made for kids on the podcast, I'm going to be the one who's going to see it. If there's a Western or there's a horror movie, Sean's going to see it. And if there's something that was adapted from a book, Sharon will see it. So when we spoke about those, I mean, I knew that Sharon was all over them, and it was like saying something similar to what you were saying about like, oh well, that wasn't quite the same. And I remember watching David Copperfield and thinking, oh my god, I need to go read some Dickens. And Sharon was like, no, Dickens is nothing like that. It's like that was a lot pacier than Dickens is. But we were saying very similar things to you, that we thought that those were really, really good films and really, really good adaptations of. Well, managing to find something new and something that have been because both those stories have been adapted many, many times, and they still managed to find something new to say.
Yeah, really good.
Which I thought, I was quite happy with that. So if you now, I know that you the message you sent me, you ended it by saying that you would. I can't remember the exact words you used, but I'm going to paraphrase.
I think a personal tragedy.
Yes, it would be a personal tragedy if cinema and theater were to pack up forever. But let's imagine for a second that is the final film you see in a cinema. Happy?
No. Do you mean happy with the films I saw?
Happy with the films you saw. No, not happy with the idea that cinema never comes back.
Happy with the films I saw. I think I could probably even revisit them and really do a proper think through and analysis. I thought they were very interesting, and frankly, I hate to say this particularly on your podcast because of the topic and so on, but I've been quite disappointed in what's been coming out of the cinema in some of the last few years. There've been a few great ones for me. Black Panther was the highlight of last year for me, or was it the year before? Time has become a little bit of a nebulous thing.
It has. Black Panther was the year before.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. But there's been a lot of stuff that I think is just Hollywood churning out the same old stuff, and I've just been a bit disappointed. Or films where the theme is showing, watch your theme is showing. They just try and spoon feed you stuff about the environment or whatever in an obvious way.
Where the theme is showing, did you say?
Yeah, so we have a rule in writing: don't show your theme. It's a little bit like saying your seam is showing from your dress or whatever.
Okay, cool, yeah.
So write in such a way that you tell a story without patronizing the reader by blatantly giving your theme. Too much exposition,
Yeah.
But anyway, I was really excited this year. I saw some really good things coming up, and I was excited to see them. So I really hope that some of our cinemas survive business-wise.
And that is the big problem. Is whether they're going to survive. That is the big problem. That's what worries us. But don't worry about saying that on a show like this, Netflix vs. Cinema, because one of the points of this show is to try and figure out whether, is Netflix going to win, or does cinema have to up its game? And how is cinema going to have to up its game? So that's why every week, usually what we do is we watch 3 things in the cinema, 3 things on Netflix, and say, where have we got more bang for our buck this week? And so your complaints about cinema, oh man, you should talk to Shaun. You should talk to Shaun. Shaun had a list of how, I think it was last year, and he was talking about how every single big blockbuster that promised stuff, he was like, did it again, they messed up again, they destroyed it, it's like the ending is stupid, and he would just go on a rant about how that. But yeah, you should have a chat with Shaun. I think you would enjoy.
Well, I actually think that's one of the problems that I would highlight and hope would change in cinemas going forward, is that they're too driven by Hollywood. They're too driven by the big blockbusters, which are often more bang than actually substance. And I think there's so much independent film out there that very rarely gets any kind of, and not just independent film, just different national film, stuff that's coming out of Africa, stuff that's coming out of Eastern Europe. And I know that the British public they're not very good at, they're not so keen on reading subtitles. But I think there's so much worth out there that, if we could educate people, I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole different topic, but I'll maybe cover it very briefly in what I think, what I'd like to see going forward.
What you'd like to see going forward. All right, cool. So, okay, we'll get to a final question because I do know you have to go on. So it's what are you most looking forward to seeing when we're actually allowed back in cinemas?
So I think that's a twofold question. I think, first of all, there are a lot of things I didn't get to see. I've got a list of must-see films that I had on my radar: A Hidden Life, Jojo Rabbit, 1917, Military Wives, Marriage Story, The Two Popes, Bombshell, Queen and Slim, Mr. Jones, The Farewell, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Parasite, Dark Waters, and that's just to mention a few that I wrote down. And I know that they came, they've had their cinema due, but I actually think, I'm hoping anyway, that because probably less films are being made during lockdown, that maybe we'll get to revisit some of those for a longer period, and actually I'll get to see some of those. I know that The Two Popes is now on Netflix, and Marriage Story as well. Yeah. And possibly one or two of the others, but yeah. Anyway, that's the one thing. Because I quite like the model of the Prince Charles Cinema in Leicester Square, the idea of showing some rewatches. Yeah. I think people like that kind of thing. And I think they've been quite entrepreneurial in the way that they've used cinema with sing-alongs and rewatches and themed stuff, which I think is quite clever. So that's the one thing. Obviously the Bond film, when that happens. Yeah. And I've been closely watching the development of the film version of the musical Wicked, because I'm a musical fan a Western fan, so I don't know where I'd fit in your podcast selections. But those are the things. I haven't given an awful lot of thought to what's in the long part, pipeline. But yeah, Wicked, I'm really hoping that's eventually going to come to screen. But the other half of this is not just what I'd like to see film-wise, but I'd really like to see cinemas up their game as entrepreneurial platforms. More sort of maybe premiering with maybe ordinary people in different places when there's a big premiere going on in Leicester Square. Tables and chairs and food. I know there's some food, obviously. They're licensed now, so I don't see how that's not possible. Maybe more director talks, writer talks, actor talks, interviews, that kind of thing. Maybe double bills like they used to be in pre my life days, or animation starters like Pixar started doing with some of their films. Newsreels, perhaps. I don't know. I just think there could be a nostalgic return to some of those formats. Yeah. And maybe just some quirky independent changes. Jazz up the forecourt so it's not just big lights and Ben and Jerry's stand. I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's something that we have said. I mean, that I do feel like, say what you like about Netflix, but I feel like Netflix they've thrown down a gauntlet, and cinemas have to up their game if they're going to keep people coming in the door.
And it can't just go to luxury. That isn't the way to go. You got to have luxury, and then you've got to have other things as well. Yes. I don't know, beanbags.
Yeah. And I know, like, for instance, we spoke about National Theatre Live, the National Theatre Live things, which were two.
Oh, of course, they've done that too. Yeah.
Yeah, which were two. I think two mediums, which I know you love them both, but two mediums which, let's be honest, are under threat from something like Netflix coming together and doing more stuff. Because I remember seeing Fleabag in a cinema, and I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And making cinemas up their game. I think you should have. Well, it's funny how you're talking about essentially taking things back to all the things that they used to do when they used to make cinema a show or make cinema an event. So when people used to leave the house, so pre-our times, like if we're talking like the 50s or the 60s, that they would make it a big deal about come on to the cinema and have all this stuff. And one of the things Sharon said on the show last week, which blew my mind when she mentioned this, we should saying, okay, after this lockdown, we know we're going to have to socially distance for a while. And she was like, look, the perfect way to socially distance while watching the cinema or watching a film at the cinema is drive-ins. Just bring back drive-ins.
Yeah, bring back drive-ins. Absolutely.
And I was like, what? Oh my God, that solves everything. And it really was, and it's really still in my head. I'm thinking, yeah, just bring back drive-ins. Oh my God, it is so It is staring us right in the face. Bring back drive-ins, and
those little trays that hook onto your window, like we saw in Greece.
Yeah, trays that hook onto your window. And I think somebody who has the capital to do this can stand to make a lot of money if they just bring back drive-ins, because you could probably even do that now. But hey, But anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And very, very lastly, which I think is a bit controversial considering everyone's battling financially, businesses particularly.
Yep.
But I think cinemas have gone for the expensive rather than, so sometimes you know what it's like. You go into the cinema often sometimes you can be the only one in there.
Yeah.
And sometimes there can be just, maybe 3 other people. And I think making this, economically, there's arguments to say if you drop the price, you get more people in, which then covers your cost rather than having 3 people paying the exorbitant price. And I think there's some different sort of economic models that they can look at. I know that Odeon and maybe some of the other ones have looked at, watch as much as you like for X amount a month, or which only works if they're
Odeon and Cineworld.
Which only works if there's lots of good content to see. And secondly, during school holidays, kids pay £1, mums come for free, or whatever it is. And I know that there are some cheaper films for pensioners and so on, but I just think that there's probably, you get a couple of entrepreneurs who have some good financial backing behind these cinemas, you might actually see some really interesting stuff come out.
I actually think if you had smaller screens, like you don't need 100 seats. So I go to cinema almost every week, and I think in the last year there were probably 3 films that I saw that had more than 100 people in them. So so I'm thinking you're wasting time heating all those other seats or anything. Why don't you just make them smaller, have more screens? You can keep the screen the same. But hey, it's
show some oldies.
I think do a revival every now and then. Bring back Singing in the Rain or something like that. So exactly.
12 Angry Men, that kind of thing, good black and white
things that that most of us would never have had a chance to see on the big screen. The Wizard of Oz. But
I watch that every Christmas at home, so they could bring that in as a Christmas film.
Bring back every Christmas. Okay, you hear that, cinemas? You will have at least one customer who will come every Christmas to watch The Wizard of Oz on your screen.
Exactly.
Right. Sandi, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Thank you very much for your
Tosin.
answers. I'm sure
Thanks for having me.
You're going to have loads of people head scratching and going, "Oh yeah, good idea." and you're making
hopefully.
And you're probably just going to send me to go find Delta Force now and then watch it and go, oh my word, and
then please tell me if it actually ages well or if it didn't. I have a feeling it's not going to age very well.
It's a Chuck Norris movie from the 80s. There's no chance it has of aging well whatsoever. It has no chance. No chance. I mean, just going to watch it and be like, man, we liked some rubbish when we were kids.
I was just thinking, I think some films have maximized on this idea of really, really bad films and going to see that as a big group, like Sharknado and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
As an interactive thing. Yeah. Anyway, there's another idea.
Well, yeah.
But I could go on.
Yeah, the final film I saw in the cinema was definitely one of those.
Okay, yeah.
I saw Fantasy Island. Save yourself. Save yourself.
I'll take your advice, definitely.
All right, cool. All right, see you there.
Thank you, Tosin.
Say hi to Roller for me.
Will do. Bye.
Bye. That was Sandi. Sandi, thank you so much for coming onto the show. And for anybody who wants to come on the show and tell us about their things, answer those questions, tell us their stories, we will be more than happy to hear from you. Find us on Twitter at NetflixVSCinema. And tell us what it is you want to say. We'll bring you on. We'll interview you. And nowadays, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. I have a friend in Texas that I'm hoping to track down because I think he's going to be really, really interesting. So what did you guys think about Sandi's interview?
Chuck Norris gets another mention.
Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris.
And not just a Texas Ranger either.
Delta Force.
Oh dear, that's a bad film, man. That's like a straight to video doobie. What's it? It's like the magic motorbike. The
magic motorbike. Oh my God, Delta Force.
Yeah. I remember seeing that. That was proper. I I wonder if that was one of those canon films, those silly, because there was loads that came out like that. There was one called, I don't know, I can't remember. There was just so many of them at the time, you know.
Well, yeah, right about the time in the 80s.
Missing in Action.
Missing in Action. Oh my God.
All those.
Yeah, Missing in Action. That was the time when
Wolf McQuaid.
Yeah, that was
Wolf McQuaid was a Chuck Norris.
Yeah, and there was a time when you had like Michael Dudikoff in the 80s where he became a massive star as well with American Ninja and all that sort of stuff. That is like my time, because as I was telling Sandi, Delta Force was like, if we had cinemas in the 80s in Nigeria, Delta Force would have been a massive hit. Everybody was talking about this film. Every kid wanted that magic bike. Everybody. I think there's a bit towards the end. Where he's trying to get onto a plane and he's riding on his magic bike to sort of catch up with this plane, and he has to hold on to like a dangling rope ladder from the plane, and then he lets the bike go and the bike blows up. And we kids, we almost wanted to cry about the fact that, oh my God, the bike's dead. But that was the best bike in the world. How could you kill that bike? So I'm like, but anyway, anything. What? Sorry, yeah.
I think I may have. I don't think I saw that in the pictures. I think I saw that in the video, like with when you used to get the video shops. You know, used to go like saying. But when video first came out, this is what I remember about when video first came out, and I had a Hitachi video, and there was this. This was how expensive it was. I suppose this would be. I don't know what it was. Anyway. So, cut long story short, this video shop opened and it was called Video Unlimited. I'll never forget, but you had to buy a video which was about 30 quid, and then you could exchange it. So it was like a library. So you used to go down there. It was run from this house down the road here actually, and you'd have to. So you buy one for 30 quid, and then every time you changed it, you had to pay 6 quid. So it was really, really expensive. And then
for those days, that was expensive.
That's bloody dear, but
even nowadays, that's still expensive. I would want to.
I know, but it was like. Whoa, it was like, you know, it was good to see. And there was some, you know, it was all pretty rubbishy stuff, you know, it was all like B-movie stuff and that, but it was such a novelty to have this videotape recorder, and you could record on it as well. You could record off the TV, but it was it had like big buttons. And so you had to, and if you ever paused it, there was like a massive jump, you know, like when you watch the thing back. So that's what I remember. And then the video shops just opened and they became, you know, like independent ones. And then Blockbusters turned up and, you know, they became like 5 for 3 quid or something. It was, you know, it was crazy really. But that's what I remember about video. Was the first time it was like, whoa, I can finally choose what I want to watch. It might cost me 6 quid a pop.
We used to go to our local radio rentals. They used to do video rentals as well, because we used to, in the late 80s, we used to rent our video. We never bought one. And we used to rent our television as well. So you could rent the video and the television, and then they also rented all the films. So often we would go down the radio rentals shop, because they had my mum and dad's membership number, so me and my brothers could go in there and rent films from them.
Yeah, that's it.
As well as all the usual Spar shop and the video shops and all the rest of them.
That's it.
Now, I do remember going to watch,
remember Woolworths?
They had a big video section,
yeah. I could say some things, but I'd get in serious trouble. But I'll tell you about them. I'll tell you about it sometime. So yeah, but yeah, no, those were great. Those days, really. Well, I don't know if they were or not. Really. But yeah, so
it was a different approach to film, isn't it? How film evolves, as we've always said, hasn't it? It evolves, and that was one of those sort of processes from just cinema to that transition to owning films and to being able to watch things. And that was like one of the steps that led us to where we are today, where you've got streaming of films in your own home. So one of the stepping stone on the path to where we are now, and who knows where it will be in the future.
Well, that's it. Be beamed into your living room. But it was quite funny with, I suppose, like with the food thing.
Popcorn.
You know, at home,
I'm not popcorn.
But if you're at home, you can just choose to have what you want, can't you? Really, I mean, whereas you're very limited to expensive stuff at a cinema.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't like popcorn, then, Sharon?
I don't like. But just before they went into lockdown, the Cineworld started to introduce loyalty rewards. So if you were a frequent member and you went a lot, they started to give you free popcorn and free sweets and 3 other things. And so I got some free popcorn the last time I went. and I must admit, I managed to eat about at the top inch before I had enough. And so I folded the top in like an envelope, and then when we came out, there were some people going in for next to them. I said, "Would you like some popcorn?" And I sort of like just handed this baton over to someone passing me in the corridor. So a little goes a long way, but I don't like the rustling. It's not so much the crunching; it's the whole when they're in a bag. It seems to be like, and then you get the crunching. It's like, just take a piece of popcorn. Do you really have to hunt that hard to find a bit of popcorn? Just take a bit. So that does drive me up the wall.
That's right. I do like butter kissed though. So I guess Tosin likes butter kissed as well, because that's my favourite sort of popcorn.
I think if they did it about a teacup size rather than this sort of gallon of it, it might be a bit more acceptable. But you just get too much of the darn stuff.
I'm not
forevermore.
I'm not a fan of popcorn. I mean, I used to be, and I think Sandi was talking about how like she loves cinema popcorn, and cinema popcorn is like the thing. That's where it's at. and I used to feel like that because it's and this is something that keeps coming up. People keep talking about why Netflix cannot replace cinema, and it's like I used to be like, oh, you got to go there, you got to get the popcorn and all that, because I even before nowadays I feel about the only thing I might eat is like one of the hot dogs if I'm feeling desperate, but it's like
I quite like the pick and mix. I have to say.
But the problem with the popcorn I find is that after eating any amount of popcorn, I can have a handful of popcorn, and I'll find like 2 weeks later there will be a kernel or the shell of a kernel stuck somewhere in my gum line that I can't quite get to, and it will just drive me mad. And it's happened so much, and it's become so frequent. I don't know whether like that gap has become bigger as I've grown older or whatever it is, but now I can't handle it. So whenever I look at a bowl, at any kind of popcorn, even at home, when my wife makes popcorn, I look at it and I just kind of go, no, I can't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth the hassle that I'm going to have in 2 weeks when I'm trying to get a kernel away from my gum line and it's just sticking in there and trying to affect my gum or something. So yeah, I'm over popcorn. I'm over it. I'm absolutely over it. So
not even butter kissed.
No, not even butter kissed. I mean, I used to like butter kissed, but now, man, it's too sweet. It just makes me feel sick. It makes me feel sick, which I think I have to thank my body. I think my body is telling me, dude, you're getting old. You can't handle this stuff anymore. Butter kissed, it might taste good going in. It's not going to be good for you once it gets on the inside. It's not going to be pretty. So I'm hoping that that's what's happening. And my body is just trying to protect me from doing something silly and loading up on butter kissed. So now, Sandi was talking about her first trip to the cinema and how her brother and her had to sort of beg, and essentially I think it was something about she was allowed to watch something that he wanted to watch, and I think you had a similar story. You were talking about having to go to the cinema with your brother, and that what was it that you were saying about you and your brother in cinema first time?
Yeah, we both. Well, I've got two older brothers, and so my first cinema trip was I went with them to see Star Wars at the cinema. But one brother's 4 years older than me, and the other one is 2 years, well, just under 2 years older than me. And so we were like, Jim. So yeah, I was allowed to go out with them as long as I stayed with them.
Yeah.
And so yeah, often it'd be what they wanted to see, and then there would be like 2 or 3 of their mates. So I would be the little sister tagging along with my brother and their mates.
So do you remember when you actually finally got to, because this seems to be something, especially with younger sisters, I was speaking to with the interviews, this seems to keep popping up. The younger sister who has to go along and ends up having to watch what her brother wants to watch because she's not allowed to see. And do you remember the first time you managed to get to the cinema on your own and you got to choose what film you want to see?
Yeah, it was probably about 4 years later when I was old enough, when I was allowed to go with my friends. And I think, in my head, I think we went to see Grease on one of its re-releases. So one of the things that Sandi was saying in her interview would be like, why don't they just show films again? The films that you've missed in the cinema, or the films that you didn't maybe get on the first release. Yeah. Well, in the cinemas in the 70s, 80s, and going back to before the age of video, you had the initial release of a film, and then it would get re-released, or then it would come round again.
Yeah.
And so I remember things like Star Wars wouldn't just be at the cinema that first release. It would keep coming around over the next 2 or 3 years. And I remember seeing Grease, but it wasn't the year it was released. It was about 2 or 3 years later. I would have been about 11 or 12. So that would have been like 1981, 1982. So about 4 or 5 years after it was originally released, I saw it at the cinema with some of my girlfriends. And we all would have been about the same age, about 11, 12. So it was a common thing. It was normal that a film would still be in circulation at cinemas even years after they had been released, because you never got, if it wasn't at the cinema, you never got to see it.
Yeah.
So all these reels of film, if they wanted to fill up their schedules, they would just go and get a popular film of its day, and then they would just show it again, because they would guarantee that people would turn out to see it. And they would be interspersed between the new releases. But yeah, it wasn't unusual to keep going back to the cinema to see films years after their initial release. So I remember going to see, with my pals, Grease at the cinema, which I was desperate to see. But it took me about 4 years before I got to see it. But I knew all the songs, and I knew I even had a storybook, but I never actually, a photo book, which I used to produce. I had all the stills, but I'd never actually seen the film. And when I did get to see the film, I realised that the photo book that I had stills in it of scenes that were actually cut from the film. So I've got these photos that aren't actually in the film. I don't know if I probably still have that photo book upstairs, because I've got a box of my childhood stuff.
Yeah.
Still up there in the attic. But yeah, so I knew the songs, I knew the film, but I'd never seen it until about 4 years after it was actually released. So that was my first girls only trip to cinema.
So from what both of you are saying, you reckon that it would be a good idea for cinema to sort of give itself a shot to bring back some of the big hitters once cinemas get opened again, bring back some of the big hitters and bring people back in, because sorry, Sharon, you're going to say.
No, I would say I would love that. I don't know if the culture is right for it, because when I used to do that, when we used to go see the re-releases, it was because that was the only way you'd ever get to see these films. There wasn't an alternative. Whereas now, I think people just hang around and watch them on Netflix. But Shawnee and I, we went to see, was it Barry Lyndon?
Barry Lyndon, yeah, that was lovely.
We went to see that at the cinema, didn't we? And that was, but there was only 3 of us in there.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a marathon, because it was about 4 hours long, wasn't it?
But I mean, I'm pretty sure. I mean, they do have re-releases, like they did The Thing, didn't they? The Thing came to the cinema, and Alien anniversaries. Yeah, but I always think it would be good to have, like, you know, even though they're anniversaries, it'd be nice to have one of the screens, because they got enough of them that could show, you know, an old 50s, 60s film or something, you know, something.
Yeah, I love those films.
No, even with that, because one of the things Sandi was saying was that she was saying that there were a whole bunch of films that she missed. And I think that there were a couple of films that didn't get to be out for that long before the lockdown happened. So nobody really got to see them that much. And now I'm getting all the interviews that I've done mixed up in my head. So she might not have been the one who said this. I know that it's definitely happened more than once. Did she mention Parasite? You guys have listened to it?
Yes, she did, yes.
Did she say she'd seen it? She hadn't seen it.
She hadn't seen it. She had a list of about sort of 10 or 15 films that
she wanted to catch up on, Yeah,
and I think Parasite is
one of them.
Yeah, Parasite is one of those films that I think might make a comeback, and because that is I've done 3 interviews now where people have said I didn't get to see Parasite. That something happened. I didn't get to see Parasite, and I think that is the kind of film that I reckon you could bring back into cinemas. You could bring back into cinemas, have an advertisement, have a campaign that says don't let anybody tell you what it's about before you get to see it, and you could pack them back in, because that's the thing I just keep saying. And I think I've probably said it to Sandi. I've said it to Sandi recommended us to a friend, Patrick, who Shaun and I interviewed last week. And that interview is going to be on next week's show. And it's like, you should have seen Shaun and Patrick. It was like, oh, wow. I just sort of kept quiet and let them play. Pretty much. It was pretty much. There were bits where Patrick was like, oh, I can't believe you just said that. I was just about to say it and then you said it. Oh, buddies. But that'll be next week. And they talk about the fact that, like, you know, they didn't get a chance to see that. And I think that I quite like the idea of bringing films back in, but it has to be something that is a little bit of phenomenon, a bit like Parasite ended up being, or a bit like what they do with the Prince Charles Cinema in Leicester Square, who someone has mentioned that it might have been Sandi who mentioned it as well.
Mentioned it, okay.
oh good Lord, I'm getting really confused as to what and it's like, and yeah, and how they do that, every now and then they'll show Die Hard, or they'll have a Sound of Music or Friday evening, and it becomes about the experience about it.
Yeah, she said about sing-alongs and things, didn't she?
Yeah, they do a Sound of Music sing-along. I know that's been there since my uni days. So it's, and, but what I would say, and one of the things that she says that I agree with is, we're looking at it now, and there's someone else who I might interview soon, who was texting me today talking about whether cinema is going to survive the pandemic, and whether a lot of cinemas are going to, the same way, like, they're wondering whether airlines are going to survive the pandemic and all that, and whether the oil companies are going to survive the pandemic. Like, I mean, it's great for us because we're having, like, I put fuel in my car for less than £1 for the first time in God knows how many years.
It's been a decade, isn't it, since that's been that price?
Yeah, but he was talking about whether these things, about what happens that whenever they come back, they might have to raise their game, and they might have to actually make sure that what they're offering you is not just kind of like, not just like, the chairman of View Cinema that we saw the other week, who was like, well, who wants to watch James Bond on a 27-inch iMac? It's like, no, you're going to have to give us something else. You're going to have to give us something that reminds us of why this is so great in the first place. You can't just say, we've got a big screen. Because I think, like Shaun, you point out, you can put a big screen in your living room now.
Yeah.
So
it's still not the same experience, so I don't think.
It's not the same experience, but it's got to be something better than big screen. They need to do. I feel like they do have to up their game a little to show us something.
If that's their selling point, hey, it's a big screen. Then you think, do what Sandi was saying. They have a home cinema. You could just get a projector and a blank wall, and you're away. If that's all you want, you can make it as big as your wall is. That's as big as your screen can be.
And also,
it's more than that, though, isn't it? So
yeah. And it's not just about going luxurious. It's not just about going, oh, look how luxurious it is. Oh, look how much the seats recline. It's not just about that. They need to do a little bit more to entice us back in, like drive-in movies, which was the idea that was stolen from us. You London drive-in. All right, I think we're almost out of time. So, Shaun, I know we've had some technical issues, which means that you've been a little bit quieter than you usually are. But go, fly, say something. Right.
Put me on the spot. What can I say?
Free.
Let's just say
rant about something. I'm sure there's going to be a rant.
There's got to be a rant, isn't there? Really, I did start a rant again against. I did start on a little video, but I've only got a little bit. I only did a little bit. The other day, I was walking through some woods, and I thought, well, I'm just going to do War. Is it War for Planet of the Apes? Battle for Planet of the Apes? Or was that last Planet of the Apes one that I was going about?
It was War.
I don't know.
War.
It was War
for Planet of the Apes. Yeah, I know.
That's
so
the
I
Moses one.
It was
Moses.
It was Rise, Dawn, then War.
Yeah, War. Well, the War one. So I was walking along the woods, going, I'm going to tell you all about what. So yeah, but you like I see you posted my little seeds. That was quite good. What did you think of that, Sharon? What did you think
look
of my
really
little
good.
seeds?
Your passion flower. I think, I was a bit worried though.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down there, and I'm going to show you for the next one geraniums and sweet peas that are just starting to go about this big.
Oh, my sweet peas are about that high.
Little tiny ones. Tiny dudes.
So yeah, this
as well now.
Now, what Shaun is talking about is what is becoming the sister show to Netflix Cinema, and that is Gardener Shaun. In the greenhouse with Gardener Shaun. And so if you go into our Facebook page, and I think some of them are going up on Twitter as well, you will see that you see Shaun's budding career as a gardener. Sharon's just retired as a gardener, and Shaun is going to take up the baton.
He's taking over, yeah.
Nah, I don't think so. It was just a little play, just a little play for something to do, really.
I've got to choose a spot for my sweet peas.
And my lawns are like bowling greens. They're lush.
Awesome. Send us the picture, Shaun. You know where it's going.
You got it.
You know where it's going.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
All right. So until the next time, when I think, Shaun, will you be back on the island by then or not?
Probably.
Oh, we're still shut down to just like locals only at the moment.
Yeah, I know. They want me to go back to work, so.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah.
They people can move house now, though, can't they? So.
Yeah. So.
I know they're still saying, "Stay away! Don't come if you want to just have a day out. Don't."
So I may do, but I think probably it'll be next month. So
All right, cool.
I've sort of more or less decided that I'm going to stay away because otherwise there might be another lockdown. Sort of in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So that's what I've
Well, I might
said.
experiment next time with a home haircut, so you'll see if I turn up. I've got my hairdresser's permission to do something about this.
Okay.
So the ring.
Okay, so if we'll try and post this.
The grudge.
That is the grudge. That is the grudge. Yeah. We'll try and post the picture of this. We'll try and post the video of this where Sharon is describing what her hair looks like. And at the moment, Sharon is doing a little bit of a passable. It's getting to cousin it levels. Yeah.
I think it's like Joey Ramone, isn't it? A little bit.
You get to the point where your hair is now, your fringe is now over your glasses. I reckon another 2 weeks and we will not see your nose.
Yeah. So I spoke to my hairdresser today, and she said she gives me permission to have a go because yeah.
It's going to be like an episode.
She has given me a technique. Yeah. So she says try it this way, and then don't take too much off to start. So I'm not going to do this because that never ends well. But I will have a go because I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking, yeah.
Okay. Now you see. Now this is the vein, right? This is like Botched. This is like the TV show Botched. You're gonna have a hair. You're gonna have a haircut. You're gonna have a haircut. There's gonna be a scene where you walk in and you speak to your hairdresser and you're like, "Oh yeah, I did this," and they're gonna be like, "Ooh, well, yeah. Let's go to the examination. Let's have a look at you. Well, I'm not sure if we can fix it. Oh, this could be the end of my career if I don't make this work."
I think there's going to be a lot of hairdressing work going on because I'm sure there must be many people that have had a good old hack.
There's going to be a lot of hairdressing work going on when you're allowed to touch people again. However that happens. We discussed
this. It's like, so how can you socially distance cut someone's hair? It'd be like having a pair of scissors on with one of those like wire things like you use to cut really tall trees.
Garden shears.
Like you have like that won't be pretty.
Someone's going to invent a haircutting robot. I bet you they probably already have that in Japan.
Like a pair of scissors this end, and we have like a really long extension lead that operates the things that end. So you just do that, and then they're just.
It's going to be interesting. Or hairdressers might just sort of disappear as a profession because everybody starts doing it at home and everybody gets good at it.
I'm sure you could modify one of those litter picker things. You know, with those litter picker things, they've got really long arm with a bit of the pinchy bit. I'm sure you could modify that and do something with that.
They might have those big like full coverage like suits that only your hair comes out of, so just your hair, like all the way around. So in the chair you go in there and it's like steam cleaned every time a new client comes in, and they open it up and go and you like your hair flows out, they cut your hair and then you go and you'll sort of let out, you know, so you can have a steam bath at the same time or something, you know.
Oh man,
there's an idea that I bet someone comes up.
There's an idea. It's like if you remember the film Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, there's a hat that Cara Delevingne wears in that, which is exactly like that. Just covers the whole body. Just have the bit of the top of the head sticking out. Just touch that bit, disinfect the hair, get out of here. Next person, come through. All right. Until the next time, when we will be having an interview by Patrick Russell. Oh, good. I really enjoyed this interview, Shaun. I don't know what you thought about it.
Oh, thanks, Tosin. Yeah, no, I did. I had a great time.
Patrick Russell. He sounds a bit Irish, so I think he's got red hair, freckles, and wears a green knitted jumper.
Okay, what do you think about Sandi? Quickly, what do you think Sandi looks like?
I've got a friend who's called Sandi, so I think she's petite with dark hair, quite pale skin, and it's like a pixie haircut. That's
okay, we'll post.
I think.
Yeah, Shaun, quickly go for it. Shaun, quickly go for it.
Okay. Yeah, because we don't know Sandi, do we? I think she's like strawberry blonde, got long hair, quite tall.
All right, cool. Until next week, where we'll find out how badly you got that wrong. It's a goodbye.
Which one?
It's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
See you guys next week. Bye.
See you later.
Bye.